Hey, welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Steven Webb, and this is Stillness in the Storms and Living Deeper Lives. It's kind of two podcasts in one. So some of them we're talking about getting some inner peace, and other ones we're talking about living deeper lives and going deeper into what it means to be a human. This week, I want to talk about being lonely, and I want to really talk about it doesn't matter whether you're in a relationship or whether you're not in a relationship or whether you're just elderly or feeling alone as a teenager. There's something about humans that every now and again we feel alone. And you can be with somebody. You can be literally, I was in a relationship and my partner would crawl into bed, and even some nights we would cuddle up, but I felt alone. They were there, but they weren't present. And I'm sure all of you can relate to that at some point. So how do we deal with loneliness? What does it mean to be lonely? Why do humans feel lonely? That's what I want to talk about on this podcast. So let's get on with it. Let's face it, even if you're a child when you're like maybe 5-6 years old, at some point you'll feel lonely. You'll feel like you don't fit in. And we spend so much of our lives after we develop the ego at the age of 1.5 years old, trying to find out where we fit into the world. And when we're at school, we're trying to fit in with the in crowd. We even change ourselves to fit in. And all of this is to avoid the pain and suffering of feeling alone. We don't like feeling alone. And it's funny because why is that? Why do we have to feel like we have to be with somebody, or we have to feel like we're part of something? There's some kind of, whether it's self-love or self-respect, there's something about when you're in a relationship or when you're in that gang or when you're part of something that you almost feel more whole. And I'm paralysed just below the neck, and I'm in an electric wheelchair, and being a man and being a male macho man, I thought that being in a relationship, having a girlfriend made me into more of a man. There I was. I've got a girlfriend, I'm not paralysed, I'm not useless, I'm manly here. So I thought having a girlfriend showed people that I was something. And I guess that's the same with trying to fit in with, whether it's into a gang or in with the locals, or whether it's Hell's Angels or Mafia. I know that's a stretch from in the relationship to the Mafia, but it's all been part of something bigger than ourselves. And when we're home alone, we don't feel part of that bigger picture. Who are we? What are we? Why do we feel so lonely? Why is it so painful to feel alone? Humans have evolved to be separate creatures, to live a separate life. On the spiritual sense, we're trying to be part of the bigger picture. We're trying to be finding our way home, Wayne Dyer would say. So what is the real big issue with just sitting in loneliness for a while? But we don't like it. It's really painful. The older we get now, more people are living alone, more people are not in relationships later on. I'm 47, I'm not in a relationship at the moment. I have been most of my life. This is the first time in my life that I really lived alone. I have carers, they stay at night. They don't stay if I've got friends over and things like that. But it comes down to more and more of us are living single lives. We're in our 40s, 50s. Even in relationships, we're living in separate houses. And there's this great future generation, or our generation when we get to older age, we're going to be living alone. There's going to be more loneliness than ever. And I remember the biggest study ever in human history, that they found over 2,000 people, and they followed them year after year after year. And they took their bloods and they looked at their health each year. They also done a questionnaire of how they felt and everything. And when they got to their 70s, 75s, obviously there's a lot less of them because some of them have passed away and moved on. They lost contact. But the ones that were left, the healthier ones, they decided to look back in the 50s and see what led to them being more healthier. And they thought it would be exercise. They thought it would be eating healthier now. And it wasn't. It was the fact that in the 50s, when they were 50s, in their 60s, they had people around them. They had people that they could talk to, that they could bounce off, that they could spend time with. They had someone around that made them feel secure and safe in life. And I think that's one of the main reasons about why we don't like to feel alone. When we're alone, we feel as if nobody's got our back. We feel as if nobody's going to be there for us. And that's why you can be in a relationship and perhaps that partner is disengaged. Perhaps there's something going on. Perhaps they're not interested in being in a relationship with you anymore. I don't have any reason why, and I don't want you to, if you're in a relationship and you're feeling a little bit alone, I don't want to put thoughts into your head to what your partner is thinking. But we can certainly be in a relationship and feel alone. And what is that loneliness? Is it really just the fact that we haven't got no one to talk to? Or is it something deeper that we feel as if loneliness is an evolved state in order to help protect us? Because in groups we're safer. When we have someone to have our back, we're safer. If I was going to go into a forest that I did not know, I'd much rather go in with 2 or 3 of us as a group than I would alone. So it makes sense to evolve this fear of loneliness, that a feeling of uncomfortable to be alone. But is that all it is? Is it literally just something that's evolved and now we're suffering because of it? Or is there something deeper down on the spiritual sense that means we have to have this real connection with people? Or even if it's not with people, with animals and dogs. My little Bounty passed away last year and I miss him greatly. What do I miss? I miss the companionship. I miss the fact that I woke up in the night and he was there. I used to wake up every night and I put my arm out and I would stroke him a couple of times because I got 2 single beds next to each other. Because it's so much easier to dress me when we move one of the beds out and Karis can get either side. So when my partner moved out, literally he had a whole single bed to himself. So I would reach out my arm to him and I would stroke him in the night. And I always thought I was comforting him. And maybe I was, I don't know. But when he'd gone, I realized it was comfort for me knowing he was there. What could he do? I don't know, but just knowing he was there. And in the morning when I used to sit up and do my meditation at 6 o'clock or 6:30, he used to hear the Insight timer. And a plug now, on Insight Timer there's my meditations if you ever want to check it out. Just type in Insight Timer on Android or Apple. So whenever the bell used to go on Insight Timer, he used to come and plonk himself right next to me. And I always wonder whether it's because he knew nothing was going to happen for 30 minutes. Or maybe he'd come and plonk next to me because he knew I wasn't going to move. And he felt safe and he wanted to relax and he wanted to feel that connection. I don't know. I remember lying there and breathing at the same time as he was breathing. A little bit difficult because he was a little Westie and I had great big lungs that I've got. But I could breathe for so long. Same breath as him. And when I had my hand on him, there was that connection. I don't know whether he felt it, but I felt it. And I miss that. I really do miss that. So what is it about this loneliness? What is it we're longing? And I really do think it's that sense of safety. That sense of someone's there to have my back. So what can we do about the loneliness? What is there we can do in our lives on a practical sense? Well, we can rephrase what loneliness is. Instead of making loneliness a part of who we are and saying, I am lonely, we can say, I'm feeling lonely. And we can recognize it as something that comes and goes. So if you're feeling lonely, you could do this exercise and you can sit down and take a few deep breaths and I'm feeling lonely. What part of the body is that loneliness felt in? And you can identify where it's to in the body. And you could give it a colour. What colour is that loneliness? What texture? What does it look like? So you've now got a part of the body, a texture and a colour. For me, loneliness really is more in my chest. It's like a square shaped, it's quite smooth, not totally smooth, not silky smooth, but like a matte smooth. And I would say it's like a purple colour. And when you identify it as an object, you can go, well, bring this loneliness in. Let the loneliness fade. Can I say that quickly when you're drunk? Let the loneliness... So you can like bring the loneliness up and let it fade away. And you can imagine the object inside of you doing that. And it gives you control over the feeling of this loneliness. But if you recognize what it is, look at it and go, well, I'm feeling lonely because of this. Nothing wrong with feeling lonely. There's nothing wrong with having these feelings. You know, very often the advice is, well, if you're feeling lonely, get out, phone someone, do something. No, sit in it. And you'll realize it's not the fact that you're missing someone. Very often it's the fact that you're missing what that someone, you feel that someone gives you. And it's very often security or a sense of somebody's there, a safety net. You know, to have someone to bounce ideas off, to chat, to reinforce and say, you're okay. You're doing okay and you're right. We always like someone to say we're right. I certainly do. It's like having that conversation. Yeah, I know, I totally agree. It's like, yes, we got a connection. Very similar to the enemy of my enemy as my friend when I was more of a teenager. He used to sit around the table and go, oh, I can't believe how they were. And they would go, I know, it's exactly the same. And especially in this really politicized world at the moment. You sit down with someone and they dislike the same politics as you. Oh my God, it's like that connection instantly, isn't it? It doesn't matter what they look like or what they're doing. They just you instantly bond with somebody that disagrees or dislikes the same things you dislike. That's very, very powerful. But this thing with loneliness, you know, we really have to sit with it and be okay with it. We can't change it. You can't push it away. Because like all feelings, the more you push them away, the more they arise. And I always look at feelings, whether it's anxiety, loneliness, anger, or whatever they are. It's imagine you're on a beach and when you were a young child, you always used to, or it doesn't even have to be a beach, just a river or something somewhere, and you tried to do a little dam. Maybe it's a man thing, maybe it's a boy thing. But you used to build this little dam and you used to try to redirect the water or even stop it. And you have great big ambitions because you don't realize there's never ending amount of water. And at some point you're really successful and you could block it out and you could stop the water for just a moment. And then before you know it, the water overflows you. And that's the same with emotions. If you block them out or try to push them away, at some point they will drown you. You know, at some point that loneliness or at some point that anxiety will put you on your ass on the kitchen floor with your head between your knees. I can't cope, can't deal with this anymore. Pull the curtains, lock the doors, get everybody out of my life. I need time out. And that's because of the overwhelm. And I talk about overwhelm on other shows. And I might revisit it again in the coming weeks. But we very often try to push away these feelings. Loneliness is a beautiful feeling. And when we change our reflection of the way we see these things, the way we can handle them changes. And loneliness is one of the great ones, that if we look at loneliness as a beautiful feeling that comes and goes, you could never be lonely unless at some point you had someone. Unless at some point you had that security and safety of someone being there for you. Which means at some point it can be returned, it can be there. Even if it's just in your heart, sometimes it can be there. You don't have to be with people to be not lonely. You just have to believe you're not alone in this thinking. You're not alone in this feeling and perhaps grief. Very often someone just saying to you, I feel the pain too. Sometimes I'm lonely as well. Sometimes that's enough. I don't know if you can hear my belly rumbling, but it's rumbling. So I'm Steven Webb, and this is Stillness in the Storms and Living Deeper Lives podcast, and hopefully you subscribe. If you can leave me a review, that's brilliant. If you go to stillnessinthestorms.com, you can support me, download free meditations. You can download a book, Finding Your Inner Peace. Most of all, I can help you through some difficult times in your life. And I can help you through loneliness. And if you are particularly suffering from loneliness at the moment, head over to Stillness in the Storms and click the chat button, book in a chat with me. Totally free, just 20 minutes. And they'll come with a little page that'll say, only do this if Steven told you to. Well, I'm telling you to. Book in a chat with me if you're feeling lonely and you'd like me to help in some way reframe it for you. Take care. Love you guys, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being here today with me. Have a great week.